Ben kendim nasıl çalışabilirim daha sürdürülebilir bir gelecek için?
Paris Jolobaju-chukti ki.
Mikä on pienenevän mehiläispopulaation vaikutus
Waarom
maapallon
zouden we om
ekosysteemiin?
klimaatverandering moeten geven?
Quel est pied? Manger du soja non durable ou manger
Plastic
du
straws,
viande
whole
locale?
bag, فاضية نكريمة فارسيرة كتران
هل لأفعالنا البسيطة قيمة؟ जब बर्फानी तोदे सब पिघल जाएंगे तो बर्फानी रीछों का
Welche
क्या
Art von
मतलब
Auswirkungen
होगा?
hat Palmöl?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 4600 Kilometers of Sustainability, a podcast where we, Misha and Sonja, chat about sustainability issues and answer your questions as we hang out together for 4600 kilometers away from each other.
Hello, y'all, and good to have you here again. Today, we are going to discuss our food consumption in terms of sustainability. We will have a special focus on plant-based diet, as this is also something that a lot of you guys wanted to hear about.
So some of you asked us this, which is worse, eating unsustainable soy or eating local meat? Excellent question. Also, you guys asked some concrete numbers of meat and dairy consumption, so here they come as well.
So just to get the big picture, we already mentioned in one of our previous episodes that meat production is a very inefficient way to produce energy. 77% of the agricultural land in use is for meat and dairy production, and only 23% is for plants for humans to eat. But in terms of global calorie supply, meat and dairy provide only 18%, and 78% of the calories come from plant-based food. Imagine if we would be able to give some of that land back to nature by switching to a more planet-friendly diet.
Also, if you look at the world's mammals, humans and livestock contribute around 96% of the biomass, and only around 4% is wild mammals. So I think wild animals should really use some more habitat.
The sustainability of local meat varies, of course, depending on a few things. Firstly, what does the animal eat? 77% of soybeans produced worldwide is used to feed livestock, and giving that soy to an animal and then eating the animal is a very inefficient way to produce food compared to that you would just eat the soy yourself, because a huge chunk of the energy that the animal gets from its food is lost as the animal needs it to keep itself warm and to keep up various life processes like moving around.
Then it depends on what kind of meat you eat, because how efficiently animal feed is transferred to meat depend on the animal. A cow needs 25 kilograms of feed to make 1 kilogram of edible meat, and for chicken, the same number is estimated to be around 4.5 kilograms. These ratios, of course, depend on what they eat, but I hope you get the picture.
And then let's look at actual transport emissions. When it comes to beef, the emissions from packaging, transport, and retail combined create only like 1 to 9% of the total emissions.
And generally, according to a study on the Science magazine, the carbon dioxide emissions for 100 grams of proteins are 50 kilos of carbon dioxide for beef and 2 kilograms for tofu.
There is this book by a Finnish author, Suvi Auvinen, and she concludes that there might be some individual cases where certain way of cultivation and transportation, etc., can mean that a certain vegetarian food becomes more unsustainable than local meat, but these are definitely exceptions.
Then there are quite some health issues that meat eating brings about. And now we don't just mean the issues that you have to experience if you eat meat.
So, a fun fact, global consumption of antibiotics by animals was around 131,000 tons in 2013, whereas humans consumed only 40,000 tons. And to those who don't want to do the math at home, the human part is only 22%.
This is really concerning, considering that the antimicrobial resistance is regarded a global health and development threat by the World Health Organization. So basically, antimicrobial resistance means that bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites change over time and no longer respond to medicines.
And the problem is mainly due to overuse and misuse of those medicine products to which antibiotics belong to.
And we really don't want antibiotics to stop working.
Okay, so let's move on to dairy then.
If you look at different types of milk emission-wise, dairy milk has definitely the highest emissions. If you drink 1 glass of dairy milk every day per year, your milk emissions would be 229 kilograms. The same for rice milk would be 86. For soy, it would be 71. For oat, 65. And for almond, 51 kilograms. So whichever plant milk you choose, you will be producing way less greenhouse gases than if you chose dairy.
Based on this, you might think that almond milk might be the most sustainable option. This might not be the case, however, because almond milk requires the most water after dairy. This is a problem because 80% of the world's almonds are produced in California, and as you probably know, it is very dry in there. This leads to quite some negative impacts, like even the land is subsiding or sinking because so much groundwater is extracted for the almonds.
And when it comes to oat and soy milk, oat milk has less emissions per glass, but the protein content is quite different. For example, 100 milliliter of Alpro milk has 3 grams of protein, whereas Oatly has 1.25 grams of protein.
And the generic off-brand oat milk that I have in my fridge right now has only 0.3 grams of protein. So the results obviously differ whether you calculate your emissions per unit of protein or per glass. And when it comes to rice milk, it's a little bit of a mystery for me because I feel like I never see rice milk anywhere. I'm not sure how it tastes like, and I'm not sure how it's useful. So I'm not even sure if I believe that it exists, to be honest.
But this episode is not to say that you have to go vegan or vegetarian right now. The so-called planetary diet that is designed so that there is enough food for 10 billion people does have some space for a little bit of meat. But what we have to do is to increase the plant intake a lot and eat less meat. Meat will have to become a kind of a side thing, and not the main dish.
And of course, there is no one size fits all. Some people are allergic to certain sources of protein, and depending on where you live, you might have a very hard time finding plant-based food. And of course, it can be a question of money too. Vegan food can be very cheap, even more so than meat, but if you want like some ice cream or whatever, you might find out that it's just too pricey.
But luckily, the world is changing, and we are seeing more and more diverse and affordable plant-based alternatives in stores.
Exactly. And what I try to remember when I talk to my loved ones about these topics is that it should not be all or nothing, because then people will generally choose nothing, which is much, much worse than something. And if 10 people go half vegan, the impact is the same as 5 people going full vegan. So which one do you think it's easier to achieve?
All right, this was everything that we had to say about plant-based diet. We hope you enjoyed hanging out with us.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us today. We really appreciate it. We hope you join us next time too. We will talk about plastics and answer some questions related to that. And please stay tuned for future episodes in general.
If you guys have something that you would like us to talk about, or maybe you have an idea for a fun segment for us, please contact us. We would love to hear from you. You can do that on our personal Instagrams if this is where you found this podcast, but you can also do that on our email, 4600podcast@gmail.com. Bye!
Bye-bye!